Hi, I am Miro. Welcome to my session about distributing VS Code extensions with OpenVSX. Quickly about myself. I am currently leading the OpenVSX project at the Eclipse Foundation, and I'm also involved in several other Eclipse-based projects like Eclipse Theia, a framework for IDE development and IDE-like products, and also Eclipse Sprotty, a diagramming framework, web-based diagrams, and also several others. So, how did it all start? We have seen VS Code gain a lot of traction, a lot of interest, and being adopted by a lot of developers all over the world. And VS Code, I don't know whether it was from the beginning or after some time, they offered an extensions view within the applications where you can search for extensions, and then you can see details in the search results and install them directly into your running VS Code. And so this was developed by Microsoft, and they offer a marketplace where you can upload your own extensions, and this has been a huge success. So there are currently more than 21,000 extensions uploaded here. So we see that there's a huge community around this VS Code project, and also the extension marketplace of VS Code. And beyond this, there are also other applications that over the last years have started adopting the VS Code extension format, like Eclipse Theia most notably, which has added support for VS Code extensions over the last years. And there are also other projects based on Theia, like Eclipse Shea, and also Gitpod, which is a product that is developed at TypeFox for cloud development environments. And these then, of course, inherit the capabilities of Theia regarding VS Code extensions. Then there are forks of VS Code that are distributed as open source projects like VS Codium, which we'll also mention later again. And there are other products like Coder that use VS Code in their cloud development offerings. So there's one big problem with all these applications that support VS Code extensions. The terms of use of the Microsoft Visual Studio Marketplace say marketplace offerings are intended for use only with Visual Studio products and services, and you may only install and use marketplace offerings with Visual Studio products and services. So all these additional applications that we have seen on the last slide are not allowed to use the marketplace that has been set up by Microsoft. And this is the main motivation for us starting the OpenVSX project. So we started this roughly 1 year ago, and the service went live half a year ago in April. So there are two stated goals of this project. The first is to provide a marketplace for VS Code extensions that can be used by all tools that support this format. So here the highlight is on all tools, not only tools by one vendor. And the second goal is to allow self-hosting marketplace instances. And so I will talk about these two things in this presentation. And first, the first thing I want to talk about is the public instance that is available at open-vsx.org. Let's have a look at that in the browser. So this is how it looks like in dark theme. I enlarged it a lot so that you can see it better on your screens via streaming. And so we can see here, we can search for extensions, and we'll see the search results below. And when we click on some extension, we can go to the detailed page that gives us also the content that is provided by the extension itself in markdown format that is rendered in here. I see three target groups for this public instance. One is extension users, then tool developers, and extension publishers. Let's have a look at these three perspectives on the public openvsx.org. For users, the perspective is quite similar to what we have seen in the beginning with VS Code. So this screenshot here is taken from Eclipse Theia, which also has an extensions view where you can search and browse the search results, see the details on these separate pages, and then install directly into your running application. So this is really the same concept as we've seen before. So, and the goal is for any application that supports these extensions to have native integrations so that it's as easy as possible to install extensions into the application. It's also possible to use OpenVSX with VS Code, and this works based on an internal file of VS Code called product.json. If you change an entry in that file, extensions gallery, to this URL and restart VS Code, then whenever you search for extensions in the extensions view, you will see the results from openvsx.org instead of the Microsoft Marketplace. And this is made possible with an adapter that we have here in this public API that adapts the contents of openvsx.org to the VS Code Marketplace API that has been defined by Microsoft. And we have used exactly this adapter also to connect the VS Codium project. The goal of VS Codium is to offer VS Code without the Microsoft specific branding, telemetry, and licensing. And a few months ago, I proposed a pull request to the VS Codium repository to change the marketplace to OpenVSX, and I was very happy to see that this request was accepted. So that means that now everyone who installs the newer versions of VS Codium will automatically use OpenVSX as a marketplace without even noticing. So the user interface is really the same as in VS Code. Then the perspective for tool developers is mainly a public REST API. We can see the API documentation here. And so this is the set of API endpoints that you need to connect your tool to OpenVSX. So this is not necessary if your tool is based on Eclipse Theia, because there is already an integration of OpenVSX with Theia. But in case you want to connect some other tool, then this API here is the way to go. I want to show just two endpoints so you get a feeling of how it works. One is a get endpoint to search extensions via text. This one gives you a list of extensions that match the user inputs and along with some essential metadata. And then there's another endpoint to query the full metadata of an extension by ID, which is also important. And so here you get for example, all the URLs to download the extension package, URL to the icon of the extension, to the markdown content, and so on. And finally, the perspective of extension publishers is they just use a command line tool called OVSX. This tool is published as an NPM package, so it's very easy to install with NPM. And it's very similar to what VS Code offers. They have a tool called VSCE. So the steps to publish an extension are: first, you create a personal access token on the OpenVSX website. You put that token into an environment variable. And if necessary, you have to create a namespace. So every extension is published under a certain namespace. And if that does not exist yet, you have to create it. And then you just say OVSX publish. This will package the extension into a zip file with the extension .vsix and upload that file to the website. So the concept of namespaces that we have here in OpenVSX is borrowed from VS Code, but in that context, in the context of VS Code, they are called publishers. And in VS Code, you can just create a publisher, and by creating it, it's you have all the rights to only you have the rights to to publish to that namespace. And for OpenVSX, we chose to go a different way because when we started making this service public, we did not want to go this first come first serve approach, but because we feared that there could be conflicts because there are already a lot of extensions out there with already defined namespaces, and so we chose a different way. And in OpenVSX, when you create a namespace, the initial state is public, and so it's also shown on the website. Like here, you see a world icon, and along with this banner in orange. And public means that everyone can publish new versions of the respective extensions. And of course, if you are the maintainer of an extension, it's better if you have the exclusive rights to publish to that. In order to do that, you create an issue in a public repository where you write something similar to this. I'd like to become the owner of the namespace RTG. So this extension is just an arbitrary choice I took for the presentation. I am one of the maintainers of the PySnippets extension and would like to publish it to openvsx.org. Or similar to this, so it doesn't have to go along any specific form. Usually you will get a response very quickly, and after that the state of the namespace switches to restricted, which means that only the owners and contributors of the namespace are allowed to publish. And that is shown on the website with this icon here, a verified icon. Then there's also a third state, which is shown with a warning in this orange banner here. This state means that a namespace has an owner, but the user who published the extension is not related to that namespace. And one example how we can get to that situation is when an owner for an extension namespace gives another user access rights to contribute. That other user then publishes a version of an extension, and then the original owner deletes that user again from the namespace. Then here, the website will show that the user who published the extension is no longer related to the namespace of the extension. So now, how do we get content into OpenVSX? The best solution is to directly ask the extension maintainers to publish. And this is the best solution because then they are responsible for publishing new versions. They are responsible to make sure that the packaging process of the extension is correct, which is not always trivial. So all the build steps that are necessary are done. And it's also the best solution because then if they take ownership of the namespace, the extension will be shown with a verified sign. In case this is not feasible, for example, if a maintainer doesn't want to publish to OpenVSX, we can still get the extensions into our registry. And the way to do that is to create a PR at this public repository, and then a script will take care of publishing. So there's one big change that is coming quite soon. OpenVSX.org is currently operated and owned by TypeFox, but we are going to transfer all this to the Eclipse Foundation, which is really great. It means that not only the project code is managed by the Eclipse Foundation, that is already the case, but also all the extensions that are put into this registry will be managed by the foundation. And there are two changes that go along with this transfer. One is all publishers will have to sign a publisher agreement. And the second change is we will not allow any unlicensed extensions. So in case you have an extension with no license, we will offer you to publish it under the MIT license, which is the most widely used open source license among VS Code extensions, as I have seen. So I think this is, as I said, a really big move, and I am excited about that. And I think it's really good that all the extensions content will be under a vendor-neutral organization. So this will contrast this service even more to the situation that we have currently with the Microsoft Marketplace. Now to the topic of self-hosting. There are two aspects I want to talk about here before I close my session. One is a private extension registry and the concept of an upstream registry. So why would you want to self-host a registry? I came up with 3 reasons for that. One is you want to keep your organization's in-house extensions private, or you want to make them easier available inside your corporate network. Like in some corporations, it may be a bit more difficult to access services outside of your network. Or you want to restrict access for your co-workers to only those extensions that have been verified internally. So not all extensions of the world, but only a specific set of extensions. This is an architectural overview of OpenVSX, and I won't go much into detail here, but I just want to explain a few things so that you have an idea of what it means to deploy this service. The main component is the server application, which is based on Spring Boot. And then we need a database. Currently we use PostgreSQL. And if you want your users to be able to search extensions by entering text, then you also need to install Elasticsearch. But that is not mandatory. So if you want to skip that feature, you can just omit Elasticsearch, and then you have all the rest just without search functionality. And then you have to choose where to store your binaries, so all the extension files. Currently we support Google Cloud Storage, and it's also possible to store the binaries in the database, which is totally feasible as long as you don't have too many users. And I expect that we will get more connectors to other storage types in the future. And finally, you have to choose how to authenticate the users. Currently, we use GitHub OAuth. So you have to log in with GitHub in order to get an account at OpenVSX. And here, I also expect to see more authentication connectors in the future. So if you want to deploy this into your organization and you need a specific authentication method, just create an issue at our repository and then we can discuss that. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the upstream registry concept. So the scenario here is that you have an internally deployed registry in your organization, and you make sure that your users use this internal deployment when they want to access extensions for their development workspaces. Now you would publish or upload your internally developed extensions to this internal registry. But let's say you also want your users to be able to access all the publicly available extensions from openvsx.org. So all the client applications that I know are not capable of setting multiple marketplaces. So in VS Code, for example, you can set exactly one marketplace, not multiple. So the solution here is to configure your internal registry to use the public one as upstream instance. And as a consequence, the users will find your internally uploaded extensions in the internal registry. And for all the public ones, the internal instance will delegate to the public instance. Good, that's it from my side. We have a few minutes left. Any questions? One question, how can I get involved in OpenVSX? Well, it's an open source project at the Eclipse Foundation. So you can just contribute to the repository, make pull, so fork it, make pull requests, and so the in general at the Eclipse Foundation, whoever starts contributing more than just a little bit to a repository could be eligible to become a committer of the project. So if we see people who getting more engaged into the project, we would ask them if they would be interested to become a committer, and that would mean that they can also start shaping the direction of the project, and they will be able to to get on a different collaboration level within the project team. Then another question, can extensions be on the Microsoft Marketplace and OpenVSX at the same time? Yes, so we have a lot of extensions. So I would say probably all extensions that we have in OpenVSX at this time are also in the Microsoft Marketplace. At least I don't know of any case where someone has published only to OpenVSX, and the simple reason is that the Microsoft Marketplace has been there for many years now, and so the extension publishers who have become interested in OpenVSX now started contributing to OpenVSX in addition to the Microsoft Marketplace. So that means in their publishing scripts they just have 2 publishing steps instead of only 1. What is the process for a company to publish an extension on OpenVSX? Well, the process is for a company is the same as for individuals. So it's you can just create a namespace for your company and claim that. I have shown before that the process for claiming extensions is to create a public issue. There is also an option, if you don't want to go that public way, to write an email to claim the namespace as a company. And then you can start publishing, and you will have the exclusive rights to publish under that namespace. And you can choose one maintainer who is responsible in the first place, and then that will give you also the option to add more after that. So I can show that if I log in myself into openvsx.org, and there's a settings page, and here I can see all the namespaces for which I am the owner. So for example, I myself are the owner of the Spoenemann namespace, and here we can just add more namespace members. So if you want to add more co-workers, you can just manage that yourself here. Then is it possible or allowed to white label the web front end as it's possible with Theia? Yes, that is planned, and it is possible and planned. So we publish the web front end as an NPM package that can be reused. And so currently we use React and Material UI for styling the web front end. And so the process for white labeling your own instance would be to reuse that NPM package and configure all the styling and as you want. So in Material UI you can set your own theme, and then you can also set your custom header and footer content and so on. And then you would put that UI content into the Docker image of the server application, and that's it. So this is exactly the way that we are doing that for the public instance. Then can I set up VS Code Marketplace as upstream of self-hosted OpenVSX? No, we have not implemented that, and I think we won't implement that. The simple reason is that the VS Code Marketplace does not allow to use the marketplace content for anything except Visual Studio products. So it means only Microsoft applications are allowed to use that content. And as far as I understand, that means it doesn't matter how you get the content. Everything that is in the Microsoft Marketplace has to stay in that Microsoft context. Good. Are there more questions? Okay, then I finished a bit earlier than planned, but yeah, thank you for attending, and yeah, enjoy EclipseCon and enjoy all the other sessions.